O king, is this the justice of your scepter? Wow, just take a second to let that sink in. This single, piercing question, hurled by a grieving widow at the absolute most powerful monarch of her time, didn't just challenge a ruler. It literally shattered an entire cosmic and political order. Welcome to our explainer. Today, we're stepping back roughly 2,000 years into the ancient Tamil landscape. We're going to explore a story where a mortal woman's righteous anger was so powerful it burned down a city and elevated her to a goddess. Let's get into the architecture of a classic, the structure of the Silappatikaram. Okay, let's dive into our roadmap for today. We'll start with the anatomy of this epic, check out why it's called the Mutamil masterpiece, and then dig into its three eternal truths. After that, we'll look at Kannagi's journey from mortal to goddess, and finally, wrap up with a lasting legacy of the anklet. Section 1, the anatomy of an epic, its structure and origin. So before we can really grasp the deep philosophy of this masterwork, we've got to look at its physical and linguistic architecture. The title, Silappatikaram, actually comes from two Tamil words. You have Silambu, which means anklet, and Adikaram, meaning epic or chapter. So, quite literally, it translates to the epic of the anklet. Tradition tells us it was written by Ilango Adigal. He was a Chera prince who actually renounced his claim to the throne to become a Jain monk. And the title? Well, it perfectly reflects the plot's core object. There's this fateful mix-up between a queen's stolen pearl-filled anklet and our heroine Kannagi's ruby-filled anklet. That very anklet becomes the undeniable proof of her husband Kovalan's innocence. Now, what's super fascinating here is that unlike dominant Sanskrit epics that focus on, these massive cosmic dynastic wars or divine avatars, this epic is incredibly unique. Why? Because it anchors itself entirely in the lives of ordinary citizens, specifically merchants. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how the physical structure of the text maps perfectly onto the geography of ancient South India. It's like a geographical journey that unites the entire Tamil landscape. The epic is divided into three major books, or cantos, and each one corresponds to one of the three great ancient Tamil kingdoms. First, we begin in the Chola capital of Puhar. We move through 10 subdivisions focusing on domestic life, love, and Kovalan's infidelity. Then the narrative journeys over to Madurai, the Pandya capital, for 13 chapters of profound tragedy and injustice. Finally, it wraps up in the Chera capital of Vanchi across 7 chapters, which focus on Kannagi's ascension to godhood. It's just a brilliantly constructed narrative map. Moving on to Section 2, the Mutamil masterpiece, Il, Isai, and Nadakam. You see, this text isn't just a geographical triumph. It's an absolute artistic one. It's traditionally celebrated as a Mutamil copium, and Mutamil refers to the 3 pillars of classical Tamil art. Traditional commentators like the 12th century scholar Attiyar Kunalar defined this epic as a flawless unity of these 3 elements. First up is Iyal, or literary poetry, which uses intricate meters like the classical Akaval. Second is Isai, or music. The text is literally a treasure trove of information on ancient musical scales known as ponds, and it seamlessly integrates these beautiful folk songs into high literature. And the third pillar is Natakam, meaning drama and theatrical performance. So this isn't just a poem meant to be read quietly in a room, it's a full-blown, multidisciplinary performing arts blueprint. Take a look at these precise architectural blueprints detailed in the text. It's mind-blowing. In the chapter Arangatrukarai, during the introduction of the 12-year-old dancer Madhavi, the epic explicitly details the Natya Mandapa, or the stage construction. It specifies a stage measuring exactly 7 by 8 spans, with pillars positioned perfectly, and I mean perfectly, so no shadows fall on the performers. It even goes so far as to detail 3 specific types of curtains. You have the Oromuga drawn from one side, the Poromuga meeting in the middle, and the Karanduvaral lowering from above. This level of technical detail absolutely proves how highly evolved Tamil performing arts were 2 millennia ago. All right, Section 3, the 3 eternal truths, or Moontru Nitigal. Beyond its structural and artistic brilliance, this epic is driven by a seriously profound ethical engine. The author explicitly laid out 3 moral laws. The first one is, righteousness becomes the destroyer of unjust rulers. In classical Tamil political theory, a king's authority is symbolized by his upright scepter, called the Sengal. When the Pandyan king rashly executes Kovalan without a proper trial, he completely violates the ethic of that scepter. The text asserts that justice, dharma or aram, isn't just some abstract concept, it's an active, retributive force. A state's failure to provide impartial justice results directly in its own cosmic and physical destruction.
In fact, the very moment the king realizes his fatal error, he simply falls over and dies.
The second truth states, the virtuous chaste woman is praised by the noble. Now, this centers on the Tamil concept of karpu. This often gets mistranslated simply as chastity or domestic passivity, but in this historical context, actually, karpu is a cumulative, incredibly fierce spiritual power. Kannagi's silent endurance of her husband's betrayal wasn't weakness at all. It was a rigorous, ethically motivated discipline. And it's this cultivated moral authority that gives her the immense power to challenge the king and, ultimately, command universal adoration and even divine intervention. Finally, the third truth states, karma inevitably bears its consequences. So the crucial point here is that destiny's inescapable nature runs like an electric current through the entire text. It emphasizes that individuals are entirely ethically accountable for their past actions. It doesn't matter where you go or how hard you try to escape it, that cosmic balance sheet, it will eventually be reconciled.
Section 4. Kannagi to Goddess.
To really understand Kannagi's transformation, we kind of have to look past our modern assumptions. Some modern feminist readings view Kannagi's ultimate wrath as a sudden rebellious defiance, right? Like she's breaking her domestic chains to exact this individualistic vengeance against a patriarchal society. But if we look at the indigenous Tamil epistemologies of the time, we see something completely different. Kannagi's power comes from her moral consistency, not a sudden break from it. Her response is Adam Ula Kopam, a righteous, ethically justified anger. It is the absolute ultimate expression of her cultivated moral authority, demanding systemic accountability to restore a broken cosmic balance. And this brilliantly illustrates why Kannagi transcends the role of a grieving widow. I mean, when she tears off her left breast and hurls it at the city walls of Madurai, calling upon the god of fire to consume the city, but specifically spare the innocent, it is not blind revenge. It is an act of collective justice. She literally becomes the ultimate judge of state justice, wielding her steadfast virtue as a fierce weapon. By burning Madurai, she exposes a deeply flawed system and holds the absolute highest institutional powers accountable. And that brings us to Section 5. The legacy of the anklet, a cultural blueprint. Let's move to and see how this builds a massive historical footprint that is still so alive today. As we've noted, it revolutionized literature by foregrounding ordinary citizens, but it also sparked a massive transnational religious movement. Historical records indicate that King Gajabahu of Sri Lanka attended the consecration of a temple to Kannagi way back in the 2nd century. This inspired the Patini cult among Sinhalese Buddhists, where she is still worshipped today for her powers to relieve sorrow. Fast forward to the 20th century, and the epic was widely embraced by the Dravidian movement in Tamil Nadu to celebrate a distinct, independent, classical Tamil identity. It really championed indigenous mercantile heritage over northern Sanskrit-centric narratives. And artistically, it established the foundational rules for classical Tamil theater that are literally still studied by scholars and performers today. Which leaves us with this incredibly provocative question. How does a 2,000-year-old epic about an ordinary merchant's wife outlast vast empires, cross oceans, and continue to shape our modern definitions of state, justice, and feminine power? Well, Silappatikaram remains a timeless masterpiece because it proves that true power doesn't come from a crown or an army. It comes from the unwavering conviction that human morality and steadfast virtue can, and absolutely will, hold even the cosmos accountable. Thanks for joining us to explore this breathtaking piece of human history. Until next time, keep exploring the stories that built our world.